We're continuing in Al-Muhkam wal-Mutashabih, the explicit and the ambiguous. An excerpt from Al-Itqaan fi Ulum al-Qur'an by Imam As-Siyutiyy, rahimahullah ta'ala. And we are just about to finish the quote of Imam Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani. And so let's continue. The author, that's As-Siyutiyy, he said, and he's citing Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani, قال, he also said, Ar-Raghib, that is, rahimahullah, وهذه الجملة إذا تصورت علم أن كل ما ذكره المفسرون في تفسير المتشابه لا يخرج عن هذه التقاسيم. When this amount is understood, and we reviewed what he said. What amount is that? Let me take you back. Al-Raghib al-Asbahani, he has thus far the most detailed breakdown of the Muhkam and the Mutashabih here. Actually, there was something I wanted to draw your attention to. MashaAllah. So last time we reviewed the statement of Al-Raghib al-Asbahani. He said there's three kinds: absolutely Muhkam, absolutely Mutashabih, Muhkam from one perspective and Mutashabih from another. If you've been following, then inshallah that's clear for you. And if you remember, all the details were under number 2, absolutely Mutashabih. This is what I want to draw your attention to. That makes a lot of sense. Why he didn't give details for number 1? Why he didn't give details for number 3? Because he doesn't need to. Why not? Because Muhkam is explicit and clear. It's obvious. It's right in your face. He didn't need to go into details. That's number 1. So he didn't explain number 1. He didn't break it down further. Now, number 3, Muhkam from one perspective and Mutashabih from another perspective. Well, Muhkam, that's Muhkam. If he didn't explain Muhkam in number 1, he doesn't need to explain it in number 3. It's the same thing. And Mutashabih, well, he explained it in number 2. So he doesn't need to explain it in number 3. So all the details are going to go here under number 2. Mutashabih, absolutely Mutashabih. Muhkam is explicit. Even if there's an aspect that's Mutashabih. Mutashabih has details. Even if there's an aspect that's Muhkam. So then he broke down Mutashabih. Ambiguous. I hope that's clear. If you have a question, feel free, please. So then he said, and we are repeating now for the 3rd or 4th time. He said the ambiguous then is going to be of 3 types. Ambiguous from the perspective of the wording only. Ambiguous from the perspective of the meaning only. Ambiguous from both perspectives, perspectives of wording and meaning. Okay. So he starts explaining this. So all of this, when he says, then the ambiguous in general is of 3 types. That's explaining number 2. And number 3, Mutashabih, from an aspect. So ambiguous from the perspective of wording, ambiguous from the perspective of meaning, ambiguous from both perspectives. And then he told us, as for wording, sometimes the word is rare. So it's ambiguous from that perspective. Sometimes the word has more than one meaning. So it's ambiguous from that perspective. This is where I stuck the footnote for you. I ended the lesson for you about these verses in Surah An-Nisa that repeat the word muhsanat with a different meaning each time. Review that, inshallah, on your own. Then the second one is what's mutashabih in meaning. He said this has three types. Sometimes because the speech is so summarized, so an ambiguity arose. And he gave his example. You'll review. And sometimes it's due to wordiness. There are more words than needed to express the meaning. Then he gave an example. And he said sometimes it's due to the arrangement. He means taqdeem wa ta'khir, advance and delay in the phrases of the ayah. Shuffle them, reposition them, and then the statement is deciphered. So, because deciphering the statement is by repositioning the words and phrases, then there's an ambiguity or possibly an ambiguity in the statement itself. He gave the example of this ayah from Surah Al-Kahf. أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما. And he said the meaning is that قيما, and meaning is أنزل على عبده الكتاب قيما. But I did give you an example of something that is related to the Aqidah, and you learned it before, inshallah. The ayah in Surah Yusuf. وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَن رَّأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. By God, she wanted something with him, and he wanted something with her, had it not been that he saw the evidence of his Lord. So the meaning is, had it not been that he saw the evidence of his Lord, he would have wanted something with her. Just take وَهَمَّ بِهَا and delay it. Then it becomes لَوْلَا أَن رَّأَىٰ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ لَهَمَّ بِهَا. Then the meaning is deciphered. And then the meaning would be, he didn't want to have anything to do with her. Had it not been that he saw the evidence of his Lord, he would have wanted something with her. But he saw the evidence of his Lord, and therefore he didn't want to have anything to do with her. And in fact, Yani, I don't know if anyone misunderstood this ayah in Surah Al-Kahf that Al-Raghib al-Asbahani produced, but this ayah in Surah Yusuf, Yani, misinterpreting this ayah is doom. So that's an important one to understand. And he said, there's ambiguity also in the attributes of Allah, like Yad, Ain, Istiwa. And there's ambiguity in the attributes of the day of resurrection. And I mentioned for you, like, how are the deeds weighed? We don't know. And more than that, I added for you, where's the guarded tablet? Is it over the Arsh or is it under the Arsh? How's the Arsh? How's the Kursi? All of that is ambiguous for us. And then he said, there's ambiguity from both perspectives. Then he said there's ambiguity from both perspectives, or Yani, possibly there is, and that has 5 types, and I tried to simplify it for you. What are those 5 types? Quantity, that means amount. Modality, that means how it is. Time, place, and needing integrals and conditions or details that are not stated in the ayah. So he said ambiguity from both perspectives, that's wording and meaning. He gave the example of quantity. فَقُتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Kill the polytheists. All of them? No, not all of them. Who? Those who broke their treaty with you. Not the women and children. Not those who paid the jizya. So there's an ambiguity in there. Or فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ. Marry what is good for you of the women. That's mere advice, recommendation, or that's obligatory. So how is that obligatory or sunnah or what? So there's an ambiguity there. Said the third is from the perspective of time, such as abrogating and abrogated, the nasikh and the mansukh. Then he gave the ayah, ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih, fear Allah as he should be feared. He said, some say, and this is the reason he's citing the ayah here, this ayah is abrogated by the saying of Allah, fattaqullaha mastata'tum. Fear Allah as much as you can, as opposed to fearing him as much as he should be feared. Fearing Allah as he should be feared versus fearing him as much as you can. Those are not the same. So some said this ayah is abrogated by the other ayah. Now, he said, or from the perspective of place. And the circumstances. Now, hold on a second. So, abrogating and abrogated, there's so many examples here. I'm not sure why he chose this example. There are examples of the Qur'an in the Qur'an that are so clear. It's mentioned in the Qur'an that the widow, her mourning time is a year. She has to wait for a year. But then that was abrogated, and it became 4 months and 10 days. That's clear. I think, doesn't require as much thought as the example he gave here. So what if someone came across the ayah that said that the widow has to wait for a year and he didn't know more? Then he'll have a misconception and think that the widow has to wait for a year. And she only has to wait for 4 months and 10 days. And then he'll tell you, it's in the Qur'an, I saw it with my own eyes. So there's an ambiguity in there. He said the fourth is from the perspective of place and circumstances. And he cited 2 ayat. وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَن تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا. Righteousness is not that you enter the houses from their rears, to enter the houses from the back door or from the back. That's not a good deed. So if you don't understand or know the circumstances, the context that is, then you wouldn't understand the ayah. The old Arabs, they used to perform a perverted hajj, perverted from the laws of Abraham. And so they used to, in their claim, get into the state of ihram. Then when they got into the state of ihram, they used to refrain from some things. So they thought that when they are in the state of ihram, they should not enter their houses from the front door. So Allah Ta'ala, He informs them, there is no good deed in this. Avoiding entering the house from the front door, there's no good deed in that. Then you understand the meaning. when you know the context. And gave another example. It's fine. You can review the lesson from last time. And Imam Al-Raghib, he explained, he said, anyone who does not know their custom in the pre-Islamic period, anyone who does not know their custom in the pre-Islamic period, in the time of ignorance, fil jahiliyyah, I don't want to say it that way. Anyone who does not know their custom in the time of ignorance, the era of ignorance, then يتعذر عليه تفسير هذه الآيات, the interpretation of هذه الآية, the interpretation of this verse becomes unachievable. He won't know what it means without the context. That's part of how you talk to a hadith denier. He will tell you, all we want is the Qur'an. We don't want any hadiths. Hadiths are from fallible men. We want the infallible Qur'an that's from God. Then you can ask them so many things. Well, what about this? What about that? How do you explain this? How do you explain that? So if I ever talk to another hadith denier, I actually talked to one recently, but apparently he chickened out. I'll bring him these ayat. He says he only wants the Quran, and we say, what about here? وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَن تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِن ظُهُورِهَا. How do you explain that ayah, you hadith denier? Well, how do they usually explain such things? By saying, well, if its explanation is not in the Quran, then we don't need to know what it means. And that's such a cop-out. Why is it in the Quran if we don't need to know what it means? So it's just useless, frivolous. For us, useless, has no point, no benefit. What we can do with it, nothing, according to you. Then if that were the case, the old Arabs would have been able to say to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what kind of miracle is this? It's full of filler, stuffing. Get that filler out of here. We're serious. And he said the fifth is from the perspective of conditions. So he didn't cite any particular ayah for the fifth kind of ambiguity from wording and meaning. He said the fifth is from the perspective of the conditions by which an action is rendered valid or invalid, such as the conditions of prayer and marriage. And then I cited something for you. At the moment, I didn't have the exact report. But then later I went and looked. Now I didn't actually get the exact report, was the one I was reading from. But I pulled out another one for you from Ibn Abdul Barr in his book called At-Tamheed, on the authority of Abu Nadrah. That's the one I mentioned to you last time. Or someone else, that's how it is in the book. That he said, we were with Imran ibn Husayn and we were reviewing he said, a man said, do not speak except about what is in the Quran. So when I told you, the man said to him, spare us of this and bring us the Quran. So Imran ibn Husayn said to him, you are certainly foolish or stupid. Do you find in the Quran that the Dhuhr prayer is 4 rakats, and that the Asr prayer is 4 rakats? and that nothing is recited aloud in them? Do you have an ayah that says Dhuhr is 4 rakats and recited low, Asr is 4 rakats and recited low, and that the Maghrib is 3 rakats and the recitation is allowed in 2 rakats but not allowed in one of them? And that Isha is 4 rakats and recitation is allowed in 2 rakats and not allowed in 2 rakats, and that the Fajr is 2 rakats in which the recitation is allowed? And there are other renditions of this report. And he was saying to him about zakat and other things. He said, and Imran said, what we are upon equals the Qur'an. Well, he means something here, according to this report, this version of the report. It means, like the Prophet ﷺ said in one hadith, whatever the Messenger of Allah forbade is like what Allah forbade. Whatever the Messenger of Allah made lawful is like what Allah made lawful. This is what he means. Really, the Qur'an is superior to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So, yeah, maybe we'll look into some of the other versions of the report. If we want another one, maybe we'll put another one here. Because some person who doesn't get it, or he gets it but he's argumentative, he will argue here. What? He said the Sunnah is equal to the Qur'an? You need some comprehension. As if you need some comprehension if you want to argue this point here. So he's saying, therefore, there's ambiguity in some of what's in the Qur'an concerning the worships, the obligations. And this is as far as we got. So now we are continuing with Al-Raghib al-Asbahani's quote. So he also said, وهذه الجملة إذا تصورت علم أن كل ما ذكره المفسرون في تفسير المتشابه لا يخرج عن هذه التقاسيم. When this amount is understood, all what I just now recapped for you, when this amount is understood, it becomes known that everything Quran interpreters have mentioned about the interpretation of the ambiguous does not fall outside of these divisions, all of what he broke down there. I think I didn't save that chart that I had put up for you. And he still has more breaking down to do before he gets out of here. He said, ثُمَّ جَمِيعِ الْمُتَشَابِهِ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةِ أَضْرُبٍ. Furthermore, all that is ambiguous in the Quran is of 3 types. ضَرْبٌ لَا سَبِيلَ إِلَى الْوُقُوفِ عَلَيْهِ, a type for which there is no way to ascertain it. Yes, that's what Shaykh told us. كَوَقْتِ السَّاعَةِ, such as the time of the hour. وَخُرُوجِ الدَّابَّةِ وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ, and the emergence of the beast, the earth beast, which is some kaiju that Allah creates. Kaiju means giant monster. According to those who said it's giant monster, they said the mountain of Safa will crumble and a monster will come out of there. That's one of the major signs the Judgment Day is near. When will that happen? We don't know. That's completely ambiguous to us. And what the Shaykh usually mentions is when Judgment Day will occur, this one, waqti sa'ah, the time of the hour, and he usually says, وَخُرُوجِ الدَّجَّالِ, the emergence of the imposter, when the imposter comes out. Here, Al-Raghib said, when the beast will come out. Okay. and similar matters, like when the imposter will come out. Okay, we agree with that. وَضَرْبٌ لِلْإِنسَانِ سَبِيلٌ إِلَى مَعْرِفَتِهِ. And there is a type for which a person has a way to know it. كَالْأَلْفَاظِ الْغَرِيبَةِ وَالْأَحْكَامِ الْمُغْلَقَةِ, such as uncommon words and challenging rulings. Ah, mashallah, barakallahu feek. There's the chart. That's the chart. You can see it there. I don't know if it's appearing on your screen. So when he said, if this amount is known, then it's known that all what the scholars of hadith, what the scholars of tafsir have said about the ambiguous doesn't escape all of this. All of what the scholars of tafsir said about the ambiguous is caught by this breakdown. So says Al-Raghib al-Asbahani, rahimahullah. And to say there's a type of ambiguity that a person has a way to know, we agree with that too. And he said, ضَرْبٌ مُتَرَدِّدٌ بَيْنَ الْأَمْرَيْنِ, and a type between the two. يَخْتَصُّ بِمَعْرِفَتِهِ بَعْضُ الرَّاسِخِينَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, the knowledge of which is particular to some of those who are firmly grounded in the knowledge. وَيَخْفَى عَلَى مَنْ دُونَهُمْ, and it is hidden from those below them. Yes, that's true. We agree with that, because that's in the saying of Allah, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows its interpretation but Allah and those grounded in the knowledge. Yani, that proves number 2 and number 3. That there's a type that there's a way to know it. That's proven by the fact that none knows the interpretation but Allah and those who are firm in the knowledge. Because they can interpret it. They know the ta'wil. And a type between the two. Something that the people who are firm in the knowledge know while others don't know. That's also proven by the same ayah. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. No one knows its ta'wil but Allah and those grounded in the knowledge. Yani, not other than those grounded in the knowledge. Those who are not grounded in the knowledge don't know the ta'wil. So that's true here. What he said here is true. And then he said, وَهُوَ الْمُشَارُ إِلَيْهِ بِقَوْلِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ لِابْنِ عَبَّاسٍ. This is the one referred to by the prophets saying sallallahu alayhi wasallam to Ibn Abbas. Yani, four is saying four, which is a supplication. His dua is saying, which is his dua. قوله أي دعاء بقوله أي بدعائه لابن Abbas. The prophet saying, meaning the prophet's supplication alayhi salatu wasalam for Ibn Abbas. Allahumma faqihhu fi ddin wa allimhu ta'wil. Oh Allah, grant him comprehension of the religion and teach him the ta'wil. Can I go back to number 2? This one, a type for which a person has a way to know it, such as uncommon words and challenging rulings. Yes. What about number 2? But let me know what your question is. I'm going to keep moving. Yes, not clear the difference between 2 and 3. He's saying number 3 is a kind that only those who are strong in the knowledge know. Those who are not strong in the knowledge don't know. It will stay ambiguous for those who are not strong in the knowledge, and it will be clear for those who are strong in the knowledge. And number 2, he's not saying that this requires being strong in the knowledge. Amin wa fikum. So he said, this is the one referred to by the Prophet's dua for Ibn Abbas. Allahumma faqihhu fi din wa alimhu ta'wil. Oh Allah, grant him comprehension of the religion and teach him the ta'wil. Yes, we learned this hadith. Allahumma alimhu al-hikmata wa ta'wil al-kitab. Oh Allah, teach him the wisdom and the ta'wil of the book. And it has other renditions. This report has other renditions. Okay, so this proves what? This proves that there is ta'wil for the ambiguous. Is ta'wil something that should be avoided when the Prophet ﷺ made dua for Ibn Abbas to have it, to know it? There's a long footnote here. I'm going to save this footnote for when we come back. We're going to, inshallah, finish this section. Then we'll come back and check all the footnotes, read the footnotes, and then we'll move on from this excerpt, inshallah ta'ala. So, Shaykh Al-Raghib, rahimahullah, he says, when you have understood this summation, this amount, then, when you have recognized it, إذا عرفت هذه الجملة, when you have recognized this amount, عرفت أن الوقف على قوله وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله ووصله بقوله وما يعلم تأويله وما يعلم تأويله إلا الله والراسخون في العلم جائز وأن لكل واحد منهما وجها حسب ما دل عليه تفصيل المتقدم انتهى. So what did he say? He said, when you have recognized this summary, if you have comprehended what has been presented to you, then you will know that stopping at the saying of Allah, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, period. No one knows its interpretation except Allah, period. As well as connecting it with his saying, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. Here. Instead of interpretation, ta'wil in the first one. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. When you have recognized this summation, when you understand this summary here, then you will recognize, you will know that you can stop here. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. No one knows its ta'wil except Allah, period. And you can connect it and say, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. None knows its ta'wil except Allah and those firmly grounded in the knowledge. It's permissible. Both of those are permissible. That's what we've been saying all this time. And that each of the two, and that each recitation has a valid aspect. Both of them are correct, according to what the preceding details indicate, which is according to what our Shaykh taught us. When you recite وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, and stop there, it means ta'wil means the time of happening, the manifestation. No one knows when the hour shall commence but Allah. No one knows when the impostor shall come out but Allah. And Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani says, no one knows when the beast shall emerge except Allah. That's the meaning of the ta'wil. And as for وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, no one knows his ta'wil but Allah and those firmly grounded in the knowledge. Ta'wil here means interpretation. Ta'wil in each recitation has a different meaning. Because in one case, no one knows the ta'wil but Allah, and in another case, no one knows the ta'wil but Allah and those firmly grounded in the knowledge. So then it has to be a different ta'wil. End quote. That's the end of the quote of Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani. And, mashallah, I say, As-Siyutiyy looks like he put this one not in the right spot. This quote of Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani, because what Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani said here supports the first group. Going back to how we started the whole excerpt. Didn't As-Siyutiyy say there's two groups? One group indulges, is daring to make ta'wil. That includes Ibn Abbas, according to a saying, and Mujahid, and others, and Nawawi, and others, Ibn al-Hajib, and Ad-Dhahhak. And he said, however, the majority and the stronger approach is to not make ta'wil. And then he said all of what he said. He cited all of whom he cited. And amongst that is Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani. This quote of Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani is supporting the first group. He brought all the proofs for the first group. The first group, those who will make ta'wil for the ambiguities of the Qur'an, they cite the Hadith. Allahumma faqihu fi din wa alimhu ta'wil. Grant him comprehension of the religion and teach him the ta'wil. They're going to say, therefore, you can make ta'wil. And the first group, they cite this ayah. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ, meaning this recitation of the ayah. Not to mention all the details that he gave. He's saying, all of this has interpretation, and we are able to interpret it. So, Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani, his talk here supports the first group, not the second group, according to As-Siyutiy's presentation. Had he put this quote of Ar-Raghib al-Asbahani with the first group, then it would have fit perfectly. Then As-Siyutiyy cites Fakhruddin al-Razi. This quote, we're going to have to skip it. We're at the end of our time for now anyway. But this quote, we're going to have to skip it. As-Siyutiyy, he defeated me here. MashaAllah, rahimahullah ta'ala. This quote, I don't have the knowledge to explain it. Translating it, yes, I can translate it. I translated it, mashallah. It's translatable. But he just has information here I don't know how to explain. Just to give you an idea. He says, I'll just read the English. Diverting a word from its preponderant meaning to the less preponderant meaning necessarily requires external evidence. Okay, I can explain that, which would either be linguistic or rational. The first cannot be considered in foundational issues because it cannot be decisive. Of this talk here, I can't explain it. It is dependent upon the negation of the 10 well-known possibilities. What are those 10 well-known possibilities? This is beyond my knowledge. I don't know how to explain this. So we're going to skip this quote of Imam Fakhruddin. If I learn how to explain it one day and I'm still alive, Yani, and we're still in touch with each other, inshallah, we'll go back and look at it. Now, starting next time, inshallah, we're finally going to get to the talk on the ambiguous attributes. Wallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala a'lam. Any question? And I think if I knew how to explain that quote of Al-Razi, probably will have to skip this anyway. This just like, even at the end of this quote, what did As-Siyutiyy say? وَحَسْبُكَ بِهَذَا الْكَلَامِ مِنَ الْإِمَامِ. This statement from the Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi is enough for you. Yani he's saying, look at this quote right here. This quote is really, really strong, and it is. So, yani, it's above my pay grade for now. May Allah grant me a raise. Ameen.